right, we want to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education for Tuesday, December the 17th. And Mrs. Hines, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Beavers?
Here.
Dr. Dorr?
Here.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mrs. James?
Here.
Mrs. Evaldi? Here. Mr. Runge?
Here. Next item is a Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Hines, would you be so kind?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item of business is the approval of the agenda. Mr. Grody, are there any changes or alterations to this?
No, sir.
And I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda as printed.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 5 is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes District 186 regular board meeting minutes dated November the 19th, 2019. District 186 special board meeting minutes dated November the 19th, 2019. District 186 special board meeting minutes dated December the 5th, 2019. District 186 special board meeting minutes dated December the 6th, 2019. Tri-County minutes dated November the 13th of 2019. Tri-County bills for December of 2019. Applications and reports, and I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We need to approve the District 186 bills for December of 2019. Are there any questions of Mrs. Bush?
I do
From the
want to
board.
say something on the bills before we get the questions.
Okay.
There is a payment you'll see for Everard. He's going to receive 2 checks from us. The first one will be the total amount for the high school and for the General John A. Logan. Both of those projects are closed out, they're done. He's also then going to get a second check along with a letter stating that although they did not sign the change order for liquidated damages of $8,000. The check that we're writing is to close out this project. It is the full amount minus the $8,000 of liquidated damages. And so they're gonna get a letter with the check, and then we'll see what they do with that. But we are holding them to those liquidated damages, and so I just wanted the board to be aware.
Now I'll open it up to any questions of the board.
I have questions, page 5.
Big packet, little packet.
8. The healthy, it's to ISB, Healthy Community Grant Not Expanded.
Right.
What is that?
That's the grant that we received.
It's for summer school.
Summer
Summer
school
school?
grant that we didn't spend all the money for.
Okay. And then the playoff money, how does that work? Can you explain that?
Okay, yeah, so this is for the 2 games that we had here. All the ticket sales, they go into the pot, then we have a guaranteed amount. They take the officials off and they pay us for the officials, and then we get a certain percentage. And so it's I wanna say for the 2 games together, a guarantee amount less the officials is about $2,200.
Okay.
So everything else goes back to them.
Okay.
So it seems like a lot of money, but we're sending a lot of that back.
Okay.
So. And then we did receive a check for travel for the DeKalb game, a pretty big check for that, that I think we received last week. So.
And Jan, you should very soon be getting a check for the Bethalto travel.
Okay, well, I think that was for DeKalb travel that we got.
No, but there's one for Bethalto for
Okay.
round 1.
Okay.
I just got that and it should be out here anytime.
And all the 10, oh, were you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, the $10,000 in gas, the fuel, is that for,
Which vendor?
um?
Oh, Heinz Oil for our buses.
Mhm.
So our contract says we pay for the fuel in our buses.
So
on our buses,
what's the
so we-
time frame for all of this?
That's for
Just only the
the
1
month
month?
of November.
Okay. So does that include I guess then probably, fuel for, like the travel to the tournaments and stuff too?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
any extracurricular, everything, all the fuel, that way we don't pay any of the motor fuel taxes, some of the taxes that they would have to pay that we're exempt from.
Okay.
We wrote that into the contract, I think, 5 years ago.
And just the Envirotech, so the building on Walnut that the ROE runs from us, but we still do the Envirotech for that?
That's part of our lease, all the
Okay.
utilities, and they name pest control, trash,
Okay.
gas, not phone, but gas and, electric.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept or approve the District 186 bills for December 2019. In a second,
Second.
Mrs. Hines?
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. James?
Yes.
Mr. Beavers?
Yes.
Dr. Dorr?
Yes.
Mrs. Evaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rungy?
Yes, motion carries. Next item is communications.
We have two.
Okay.
Dear Lynn Navarro, please accept this letter as my formal resignation from the assistant soccer coach position at Murphysboro High School. I have recently moved to the St. Louis area and will no longer be able to continue coaching. During my time with Murphysboro High School, I've been fortunate to work with so many amazing young adults. The students at Murphysboro have a huge positive impact on me, and I cannot thank you enough for allowing me the opportunity to coach them and guide them on their way. As always, I wish the high school the best of luck in all the endeavors, academics, and athletes. With your permission, and if possible, I would like to ask for the approval to attend some practices when I am back in town. Of course, I understand if that is not possible. Please let me know if you need any further information from me. Sincerely, Christy Scott.
Recommendations to approve for resignation.
And I'll entertain a motion to accept that recommendation.
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear Mr. Grody, members of the board, hello, this letter is to inform you that I am currently pregnant and plan on taking maternity leave. My approximate due date is between the 6th and the 14th of February 2020. I plan to continue working up until delivery. Upon that time, I plan to take up to 8 weeks of maternity leave. I anticipate no problems resuming my duties in my current position. My anticipated time back to work would be between the first or second week of April 2020. I truly appreciate having the opportunity to work for the district, and while I understand my absence from the workplace has its inconveniences, I appreciate the understanding and support of my superiors and coworkers during this time. I look forward to coming back in April to finish the 2019-20 school year strong. Thank you again for your time and consideration of my request. Sincerely, Rachel Caraway.
The recommendations to approve the maternity leave.
I'll entertain a motion to accept that recommendation.
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That was it.
That was it.
I just have one for the board, just a notification, I will not be here in January. All right, next item is fishbowl, and we had one, Mr. Brown.
I've got that. Amy Brock and the General John A. Logan kindergarten team received a $500 grant for their work in kindergarten transitions. Their diligence in working with students before they even enroll in our district is noticed and appreciated. That's from Stephanie Finke.
Very good. That was it. Item 9 is the Freedom of Information Act request. It looks like we had one.
We did have one. The MEA negotiation team FOIA'd us for the attorney bills regarding negotiations for September, October, November, and the administrative races, and we will respond within the time frame.
Very good. Item 10, number 10, excuse me, is the recognition of the audience. The Board of Education welcomes the audience to make public or employee comments. The board has set aside time in the agenda specifically for this purpose. Pursuant to Board Policy 2.230, each speaker shall be limited to a 5-minute presentation. Please be aware that while this is the time for the public to express its opinions and/or concerns, the board may or may not comment regarding public presentations. If a matter of public comment warrants discussion or action of the Board of Education, such discussion or action will be added to the agenda of a future meeting. Are there any public concerns or comments? Employee concerns or comments? All right. Next, we're going to move into old business. First item under old business is the Egyptian Electric Co-op Association loan.
And we, the board previously approved going into this $1 million interest-free loan with Egyptian Electric. It's under the Rural Economic Development Loan Program. We needed to get an open line of credit, and so just to be transparent, we got that with First Bank and Trust. And so with board approval, we'll have Jan sign off on that line of credit for $1 million. Basically what it is they secure the loan, if the Egyptian says we need that money and they call the loan, we'll pay First Bank and Trust the money. It's through our sales tax, it's through bonding, so
Would there be a fee to that if they call it early?
if we don't pay it off, there would be a % interest, a charge on that. The fee to get the line of credit was just $100, $135, so it's extremely fair as far as getting a line of credit.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the recommendation for the Egyptian Electric Co-op Association loan.
So move.
Second,
Second?
Mrs. Hines?
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Dorr?
Yes.
Mrs. James?
Yes.
Mrs. Evaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Beavers?
Abstain.
And Mr. Rungy?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 2 is the approval of the additional executive search services through the IASB, and this was for the facilitating of the shareholders meeting last night in the amount of $1,500. I will make that recommendation to approve that. And I will make that motion, I'm sorry, to approve that. I'm looking for a second.
So moved. Or second.
And Mrs. Hines?
Mr. Rungy?
Yes.
Mrs. James?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Evaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Beavers?
Yes.
Dr. Dorr?
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 3 is the approval of the 2018 tax levy, which is enclosure number 1 in your packet.
Yeah, we had our discussion about this last month. Administration recommends the board approval of the 19 tax levy as presented. Questions and concerns can be brought up to Ms. Bush.
Questions?
There is a correction on the line that says approval of 2018 tax levy, that should be 2019. In the paragraph, it talks about 2019 repeatedly, but just in the title, so we're clear.
Oh,
I just saw that.
yeah, it is the 2019 tax levy.
I think as long as the minutes reflect that, I think we're fine.
Okay. Any other questions? We're gonna have to wait just a second. This is a roll call. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2018 tax levy, 2019, I'm sorry,
So move.
and a second.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Beavers?
Yes.
Mrs. James?
Yes.
Mrs. Evaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Dorr?
Yes.
And Mr. Rungy?
Yes, motion carries. Moving into new business item. I see what you did there.
Yeah, that's written down here.
All right. Is the 2019-2020 seniority list, which is being handed out.
Yeah,
Currently, this is informational only.
And they will be sent out to the buildings for the employees to review, and it'll be brought back for action next month.
Oh, sorry.
It's just the custodian.
Oh, no. Yeah, give me that back.
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, there's two?
Yeah, there's
Still the
three.
same one.
So this goes
Yeah,
with this and this, so there's three of them.
Sorry,
Like
I made
that.
your life harder.
It's okay.
Now we got one.
Let me look at yours.
I think there's a bunch of different directions. There's some more coming that way
Certified,
too.
non-certified custodian.
Yeah, building principal.
Yeah, you should have three.
One.
Who you missing? There's
Certified.
custodian.
Building principals.
Yeah, custodian.
I think this custodian, let's go down to her.
Oh, this is building principals, I already got building
I only have
principals.
those, Bird.
She doesn't have custodians or
Oh,
certified.
I did too. I got
There's
two of the
custodian.
same one.
Custodian, the head is your.
I got two of the same ones
I didn't
too.
get
The teacher one. I didn't get the
Stooges
teacher
have
one
the
either.
No kidding.
Certified staff?
There's custodians.
Yeah, I need that one too.
Building principal, anybody?
Got it, got it.
One of
I
those
did.
building principals.
Well, there's not any for building principals, so it could be
That's what it
certified or
says.
not. That's just
two.
certified right
So
there.
the seniority list.
You should have a
That's
certified
certified.
list, a support staff list, and a custodian list.
I don't know.
Everybody got their three?
That's two.
It's a posting today, building principals.
No, I don't
Everybody-
have three. Different ones. This
Certified.
says maintenance? Oh, I've got one.
We need a
extra. That's the
certified.
problem.
Who needs a certified?
We would not make it in the classroom, guys. That's papers.
Now is everybody set?
I think so.
Did I say, everybody said yes? Okay. Item number 2 under new business is the ISBE maintenance grant.
And the Illinois State Board of Education has approved a maintenance grant, and basically what it is they will give every district $50,000, and that would go toward a project that the district pays at least the same matching amount for. Talking with Mr. Seifert and Mr. Ripley, the cooling towers at the General John A. Logan are the next things that really need to be fixed as far as what could fall apart. And so administration recommends that we engage Hearst Roche to plan and prepare the work for the General John A. Logan cooling towers, so that we can then submit the maintenance grant on that item.
How old are those? And is that
They're
From the building,
2003, so
yeah, they're from inception.
normal
so.
life?
15 years is
2001,
No.
are they original?
Yeah, so they're past
2001.
normal.
2001.
Yeah, 2001, so, yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got, it's on the health life safety survey to be replaced.
Other questions? I'm sorry. Other questions for the board? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendation for the ISBE maintenance grant for the towers at the General.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dick.
Mrs.
Mrs. Hines?
James? Yes. Mr. Beaver?
Yeah.
Mrs. Evaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Dorr?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Rungy?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 3 is Carruthers and McIlvaine Health Life Safety Survey.
Hearst Roche have completed the 10-year life safety surveys for these two buildings, Carruthers and McIlvaine. Administration recommends that the board approves it so that we can upload them into IWAS. Basically, the costs that are there are things that we would then be able to use our health life safety tax levy to pay towards.
No.
Any questions from the board since we've got Jim here?
The big items are the roofs,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a lengthy list.
Roofs and heating and
HVAC, yeah.
Hearing no questions, then I will entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is Phase 2 of the Murphysboro Middle School HVAC.
Talking with Mr. Seifert and looking at this summer's project, we'd like to split the phase 2 into 2 summers, so that this summer it would include the cafeteria, the band room, the gym, which are the areas that are most in need, and then the following summer would be the classrooms. We believe that this would be the best way to ensure that it gets done on time and there's no real crunches or issues.
So,
Mr. Seifert's here to answer those kind of questions, yes.
at one time, there was discussion about like remodeling the middle school and possibly moving the cafeteria to that other side. So I guess my question is why would we pay a bunch of money to redo the HVAC in the cafeteria if we're gonna remodel it and move it to the other side of the building at some point?
The cafeteria needs to be cooled, and I don't know how much longer the unit currently, the unit for the cafeteria does the auditorium and the cafeteria right
That's
now.
correct.
And so that unit would continue to be able to do the auditorium if it got moved. I think was the
It doesn't have to
thinking.
be moved, it just needs to be disconnected from the cafeteria.
I mean, I agree that it needs to be cooled, but I mean, is it like, can it be cooled for another year? I mean, if we're gonna remodel,
It's more on the heating side in the
Mhm.
cafeteria, your heat units that are in the cafeteria on their last leg.
what was it we said, Carrie, if we moved the cafeteria to the other side, what was the cafeteria gonna become?
Classrooms.
So
But
if
I'm
you
sure
do
walls
this,
and
would it
beds
still
would
be
all
set
have
up
to
where you
be-
could duct work to split the cafeteria into 4 classrooms?
Yeah, you could, cause you're gonna get 2 units for the cafeteria. So if we went back to classrooms, we could make sure that all the ductwork's right for classrooms and everything, and the outside air and all that, cause it'll change a little bit. But size-wise, the units we would put on would be fine.
Regardless of how then, what I'm hearing, regardless of how we're using the space, the units,
What we do.
they have to be replaced.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And it helps the auditorium as well. Those units last a little bit longer.
It helps, you said the auditorium?
Yeah.
So
I
the
guess I
class-
just am curious, is if we're gonna remodel, wouldn't it make sense to do the HVAC during the remodel so that it's all done like at the same
Good.
time and,
We could.
I mean,
But you don't think they'll last that long?
The heat units, probably not. You'll probably end up replacing those at some point here in the next 2 years.
So what about the classrooms? If those are on the last, like the classroom ones are not?
No, the classroom's
Window
different
units.
type of unit.
Yeah.
Classroom right now is, they're all the old radiators.
Classroom don't have any problem with
In the
heat,
air.
I was able to.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
no
the
problem.
basement,
Those
the
are-
basement.
And they got window unit, air conditioners, so,
When they do the classrooms, it'll be really just taking out all those window units, so.
and all the radiators and everything will be gone when we do the classrooms. So,
And this summer we'll be putting, air in the gym, which there's never been air in that big gym, so that'll be air conditioning that classroom space for the first time.
I think the key thing that Dr. Dorr brings up, and it's a good point, we should put it into the planning process, is to make sure that we've got the flexibility, because ideally, moving the cafeteria to the other side and moving all the specials into the cafeteria was in our facility plans, long range. Cause the cafeteria being closer to the football field makes the whole transport back and forth from the, so.
well, right now, Georgia, don't you have to take stuff to freezers in a completely different,
In the, in
Sort of
the, in the,
building?
Down the hallway.
Yeah.
and so you need a brand new kitchen there.
My Christmas list.
Other questions from the board? All right, then I'll entertain a
Can I say,
motion.
Rick, can I say something?
Sure.
Just for your guys' information, we have the set of drawings pretty well done for the entire project. So it's just a matter of us pulling out what parts you guys decide you want, bid it, then next summer we're ready to go. We'll have to make some cleanup, but we'll be ready to go real quick.
So we can bid that early.
Early.
Okay.
So, that's
the key thing
just
there is
FYI.
we wanna split the project,
Right,
and we can work in the flexibility of
Right.
the long-range
I'll
plans.
double check on that.
Thank you, sir.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendation of Phase 2 of the Murphysboro Middle School HVAC.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Mrs. Hines?
Mrs. Evaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Beavers?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Dorr?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. James?
Yes.
Mr. Rungy?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 5 is the Murphysboro High School Field Concession Restroom.
This has been discussed a few times. The concessions in the restrooms are in desperate need of updating, and we have ADA issues out there that we would like to correct. So administration recommends that we engage Hirsch Roche in planning and preparing bid documents for the summer work to include the field concession stands, locker rooms, restrooms, along with ADA and fence work to improve the complex.
Locker rooms too?
Locker rooms.
Yeah, well, there's locker rooms underneath there, yeah, by the bathrooms.
Just one locker room.
Yeah, it's the visitors' locker room.
So what would be the ADA that we're?
Getting wheelchair accessibility out to the baseball area
And the fences for
and
the
the
back of
fences
the
down
JV.
there so that the softball and the baseball people can use the concession stand and they can use the bathrooms that are
Gotcha.
there.
Concession and come
Turning that
out.
whole area into a more open, usable space.
There'll be all new concrete around the football field too, around that interior fence. The interior fence would be replaced and clean up that area that,
Where the asphalt's a little
It's
high.
not-
right, where the
slope.
asphalt's a little high now. So it will not take care of anything on the bleachers though. Cause once we start touching the bleachers, you gotta replace them all.
Right.
So
Is there any space for, like, I noticed the Dazzlers have to change in the women's restroom. Is there any additional space?
Locker room kind of.
Well, it's the
sort of.
visitors' locker room though.
There-
To
there-
provide an place
There's
for
a ton
them.
of unused space underneath the bleachers that we could look at.
good, it's
It
not,
wouldn't be a big
I don't,
area.
I don't have that included in the
Yeah,
scope,
it is.
but if you so choose, we could amend
That could be an
our,
alternate.
yeah, we could amend our, we'll have to amend our contract a little bit.
Okay. That's a good point.
Cause it's just kind of not it's not good for anyone. It's not good for the people using the restroom. It's definitely not good for the girls for privacy and.
The whole
Yeah.
underneath those bleachers is just disgusting.
Cause they have their game uniforms on for the start of the game, but then they put a different halftime show uniform on and they change them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Other questions from the board?
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion then for the Murphysboro High School field concessions and restrooms update.
So then will you look at that? You'll look at that then?
The Dazzlers, yeah.
Okay.
Just to make sure, this will keep us to where we're compliant for postseason for softball, baseball, right?
I believe so.
Right now, we cannot host.
I know, but this
Right,
will
but
allow
this
us
will.
then to host.
Yeah, I think, and Jim, correct me if you're wrong, but I think that there's a fence out there that fences off the football field from the baseball and softball back there on that back side. That'll be gone. Only fence that will be out there is the small one going around the outside of the track. And then he's gonna have pretty much concrete at the concession stand and the softball area where there's grass back there where that gas tank is. And then there will be a sidewalk going to the varsity baseball field,
Varsity baseball field and turn and go towards the JV.
towards the JV. So JV baseball, varsity baseball, softball will be ADA accessible.
So for football games, how do they get in? How do you keep them from?
What he's got going on is where our Doc Bensini ticket booth is right now, that would be gone. There would be a fence around the field, around that part where the Doc Bensini is. Now where the gate is to get to drive back to the concessions, there will be a nice gate there, correct, with like iron bar type gate,
Yep.
so more decorative. So all access to softball games, baseball games,
Through that gate.
track, soccer, football, would be through the new
Right.
gate at that corner.
You
So
can
then-
set
And
up
they
a
could
ticket
also
booth there.
access
Like the
the
restrooms,
concessions then for softball.
right
all
there,
that.
there's no
Okay.
fence in the way, restrooms, we don't have to have porta potties out there or anything like that.
So that fence ties into right field of the softball field.
Correct.
Correct.
Right.
And then from there, we've got a fence, the new fence along the road that goes to the back of the high school, that we would like to run down the hill to the woods, so people can't sneak in that way. And then we need to look at maybe tying in a fence that connects
In between. the
left
two
field of
fields.
softball to center field of baseball.
Correct.
So that if somebody's gonna work to get in the facility without paying a $5 admission, they're gonna make a really long walk to get in. So,
Is there
Come on,
any
change
They
that.
earned
plans,
their free.
are there any plans to add a
Pretty
fence to
much.
the outfield of the JV field? Is
No.
that part of this or no?
no.
I mean, it's something that could be an alternate, but right now, we don't have that included.
And right now, and I mean, I don't know if you want to yet, because like with the ADA accessible, the JV ADA is not gonna go all the way to the bleachers at JV home plate. The thought is also of down the road, we can move home plate
To that corner.
to that corner, varsity home plate, softball home plate. So all home plates are right there in the same area to where somebody could watch softball, turn around and see what's happening at baseball. It's all right there, down the road.
Yeah.
That would be, I mean, just another option to make it more accessible. May never happen, but just the thought.
Other questions?
Better sell a lot of those $5 tickets.
All right, then I'll entertain the motion for the high school field concession restroom upgrade.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Mrs. Hines.
Mrs. James,
Yes.
Dr. Dorr,
Yes.
Mr. Beavers,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Evaldi,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Rungy.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 6 is the press policy updates, which enclosure number 3 in your packet.
This is the informational first reading of the press policies. There's lots of updates. I did, we included my one page, or more than one page, but summary of the ones that had the decisions that needed to be made. If you have any questions, concerns on that, please contact me over the next month. We'll have the action item at the next board meeting.
All right, item number 7 is school improvement plans, which were at our spots as we came in.
Yeah, the goal was to get the school improvement plans approved by the board in December so that I could submit them into the state. We had to do the Illinois Quality Framework earlier in the year, and so these were getting done, today. They went to Curriculum Council. The administration is recommending that we approve General John A. Logan, the middle schools, and the high schools. They got through the, there's a one-page summary on the top of that, correct, with the, where I've summarized all of the goals, or did we include that, Miss?
It was on the very front.
Yeah. There were some questions and concerns regarding the Carruthers School Improvement Plan, and so we did not get through Curriculum Council. And so I'm going to be contacting the state to find out what the next steps are, because that's gonna be brought to you next month. But we'll be able to do the general, the middle school, and the high school, upon the appropriate timelines. School improvement plans are always kind of working documents. We will, adjust these as necessary, so, but I would like, approval of those 3, and then I'll keep you updated as to what happens with the Carruthers School Improvement Plan.
Number 3, okay.
Go ahead.
I had a question on number 3 with the Carruthers School Improvement Plan. But I can touch
You're
on
not
that.
the only one. We'll talk later.
I have a question about the high school. It was about continuous growth in graduation rate and freshmen on track, increasing at least 1%, but then from 16-17, it was 44.6%, and then 82%.
Correct. We
So-
had, we had a data issue in our submittal to ISB.
Okay,
Some of our course codes, once we went to Power School, all ISB, every course has a course code. No matter what class you offer, you gotta find a course code for it to correlate. Some of our course codes were not matching up. They were not changed into Power School when we did that information system change. They're updated now. This year, last year we were at 82%. Looking at it right now, we're at like 88.9 as of right now for this year. So
I was gonna say
we
that
would
you
be
bring,
above the state average right now if it maintains through the year.
so why just go with the 1% then?
Just to show continual growth. I mean, obviously, we're aiming for more, but to show continual growth to get to it, the average is around 85%, so we're close. Like I said, I hope we're above it this year. With that and graduation rate. Looking at last year was 79.9, this year's at 82. I will say this time last year, I probably had 7 or more drop forms that I had to sign of students dropping out and possibly going to rebound or just dropping. I have not signed nearly that many at this point this year, so I feel good about it so far, about kids not dropping out this year. You know, speaking with school leadership team, I told Mr. Brody this today, and I told the curriculum council this today, out of those 3 goals, I believe that the graduation rate and freshman on track is the most important goal. Obviously, our SAT scores, proficiency in reading and math are important. However, SAT is a standard for college readiness. And in our track right now, we have three options for students: career readiness, college readiness, or military readiness. Some of our kids are not going to go to college. That's not what they want to do. That's not what they're interested to do. And some kids don't have the skills to do that. However, so that graduation rate is going to obviously show us that they are prepared to do one of our 3. For our students that are college ready, we need to be identifying them. If they're not meeting proficiency in reading and math at SAT, then we need to get them in intervention courses during ELP on top of the academic classes that they're in right now and get their SATs proficient to be college ready.
Anyone else? Yes, no?
I didn't get through the other ones all the way, since we just got them when we got here.
Did we vote
I'll
on
hold on.
this? I mean, we just got them, how do we vote on it?
What kind of deadlines are there, timelines?
Supposed to have them submitted to the, to have them approved at the December board meeting. The Carruthers isn't gonna happen, obviously. It just was it was a tight timeline trying to get it done. In hindsight, curriculum council, I'm gonna talk about possibly moving that instead of the day of the board meeting, doing it the week before the board meeting. That probably would have been the systems fix that would have allowed the school improvement plans would have needed to be done then the last week. And then we could have had another one for Carruthers today, and then you would have had them in your normal packet. But it was just a matter of trying to get the time frame for them to get done, and,
So can you amend them once you get them in?
yeah,
So why wouldn't you just go ahead and submit all four and then amend Carruthers as you corrected it?
because I need them approved by the board. And so I've gotta put into the IWAS system that this was when you guys had the motion and you passed it.
Yeah,
I-
but I'm
I
saying,
mean,
why
if you
wouldn't
wanna-
we,
If you want to approve Carruthers knowing that it's going to get fixed, that's
what
fine.
I'm
I want
saying.
you to be aware it did not get through the curriculum council, and I'm gonna be dealing with that.
Well,
Cause
I
usually
can
I bring to
imagine
you the
why.
recommendation
I mean,
once
it's
done.
there's hardly anything in it, and then there are arbitrary goals, and, I mean,
Right. I wasn't comfortable bringing you Carruthers without it going through curriculum council, cause that's what our process is. And so at this point, I'm willing to call the state and find out what to do about Carruthers and have the other three that got done adequately on time, so. My recommendation is to pass all three, by all means, if you wanna include Carruthers in the recommendation and vote.
well, goal number 3, I don't even know how you even can have that as a,
You're talking about the Carruthers? And,
How's that measurable?
well, and
What is
it's
a goal?
students with disabilities, so they all have IEPs, and I mean, they're all gonna be,
the state says you have to show growth.
collectively, right?
I apologize for the late notice. We've got 3 that were vetted by our teachers through the process that our teachers use, and 1 that was not vetted, well, it was vetted, but it did not pass through the process that we've used. And so the recommendation is to pass the 3 that the teachers all approved with the knowledge that it's a working document and we're gonna massage it.
So
That
when
makes
would the
sense.
board then approve Carruthers?
Well, you'd have to do it at the next board meeting, which would
Thought
be
you just said
January.
it had to be December though.
Cause it sounds like it's not just one
I'm pretty
thing.
sure that when I call the state and explain what happened, they will understand. I mean, we're not gonna have to do a special board meeting or anything. I don't know what extra steps I'm gonna need to step through, but I mean, that's just the bureaucracy part of it.
And Mr.
It's
Grody,
a hassle, but it's,
wasn't there, I mean, we just got this kind of information from the state just last month, since the last board meeting of when these things were due too. Remember when we had our district leadership
yeah,
team meeting?
they gave you kind of an overview of that they knew that they were gonna be due, but you had no idea what you were gonna need to submit to the state and how you were gonna submit it. And so, the whole process was somewhat, but that's why you guys are getting it the day of the board meeting versus prior to that.
It just came online 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
On
hasn't been,
IWAS.
and the IWAS hasn't been working right either, so I mean, you're on.
Well, that's
all
really
the time.
Perkins, your new CTE grant is
Yeah, but
a brand new grant, and so IWAS, yours has been down. School improvements hasn't, but.
Okay. Any other questions? Then I will entertain a motion to accept the recommendation of school improvement plans for the 3 buildings.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Item number 8 is the high school trap team.
Yeah, the high school trap team would like to expand into a middle school trap team. Mr. Tripp is here to answer any and all questions. We checked with IHS. For IHSA sports, they are, your middle school team's not allowed to interact with your high school teams. They call it recruiting. just like college kids aren't supposed to work with your high school kids. This is not an IHSA team event, so this would be a lot more like the band, where the 8th graders can move up and work with the high schoolers. Because we're looking at middle schoolers being part of the trap team, doing all the gun safety and everything like that, we wanted the board to be aware and to look at the situation. My recommendation is that you allow it. It's been a great program at the high school. It really captures a classification of kid that doesn't get grabbed in other areas. I'd like to see it expanded to the middle school, but not gonna do that without your approval, so. Mr. Tripp, do you have anything to add?
I think it's a good thing, but I think the logistics have not been worked out
Right.
well enough in order for me to say that, and by that I mean is that I know there are two different eligibilities between the high school and middle school. Being the fact that a middle school student eligibility has to pass all their classes. High school still uses the IHSA to where you can be failing one class, you know what I mean? And then if we're going, I mean, as far as those types of things, me looking at grades at the high school is an issue. I mean, I know Mr. Keener, had he not here, had said that he would do that. I don't know whether I want to impose that on him. And I'm saying those type of logistic things I would really like to have ironed out as far as those things. But I mean, accepting it and that stuff, I think it's a good program for the students. We did have an informational meeting with the 8th grade. We had about 8 students that did show up and were interested in being in that. So, I mean, you're probably looking at our spring league starting in April. Somewhere around 21 or 22 students that would be the middle school and the high school.
I guess then, really the question is, because we've got time, does the board have any issues with the middle school starting or expanding a trap team into the middle schools, knowing that we've got some logistics that we're gonna work out and then we can present it to you later?
Is that, are we saying we're gonna expand the program into the middle school, or the middle school is going to be going to the high school, with the high school?
That's what I was talking about as far as the logistics. I would actually like to prefer to see like a JV varsity team, 2 separate teams, so for logistics, but the majority of the coaches would like to just group it as to one.
But it's still only 8th grade, correct?
Middle school.
Middle school.
So,
6 to
Six
12,
and
the
then-
USA Play Target League, which is the league which governs that, and that stuff allows 6 through 12.
Is that practice field the one here in town?
That is correct. We would now be, that facilities is complete, down by the Riverside Park, the water treatment plant.
Police ring.
That is complete, so therefore all of the meets would be, and I know the intent this year is for all of our meets and competitions and everything to be at that location on Saturdays. So it would not interfere with days out of school or leaving early for school or anything like that this spring, like I know we had them on Mondays last year, and it would be moved to Saturdays. And that would be for the fact that, you know, a lot of my high school students that we have FOID cards and driver's license. You getting into 7th and 8th grade and 6th graders, that's gonna have to have an adult with a FOID card in order to be transporting that weapon to there, so.
Are there any deadlines that we need to meet as far as registering the program or
We
anything?
have to, ours, your approval, it would be that, we're gonna have another meeting, I believe it's, January 8th when we get back, with the high school students again. The actual registration for the spring league is February 23rd, is when the students would have to be signed up and registered.
So if this got moved to the next board meeting for
It would
a
still
vote,
be
it
okay.
would still be okay?
So we wanna table it till January?
Well, I mean, we're just seeing if we have a problem at the middle school, it's not our job to worry about their logistics, is it? They worry about the logistics.
Well, I mean, the person that's sponsoring it is telling us that he would like to have those
Right, but you said if we
logistics
approve
worked
it,
out.
you can work on the logistics, we're not here to
Right,
approve your
and that's, what I mean,
logistics.
that's what I'm saying, yeah, it's just,
We're
like I
just
said,
here
I
to
don't see
approve
it
the
being
middle
anything
school
other
being
than
fine with shooting.
just something that we need to make sure, and like I said, all of those things, I know Mr. Ellemeyer and I haven't had much time to conversate because of all the activities and that stuff, but I mean, I think that, we were trying to have a discussion. I haven't been able to talk to Mr. Keener about one time, and, you know, so I mean, that's, you know, as far as if you guys approve it, I think that I just, we need to try to work with those individuals and that's.
Yeah, in my mind, if we approve it, that we're all right with it, they could start working on logistics now instead of giving them a month or so. We can give them from now till February instead of waiting till January where they might just have 4 weeks to work on
I
logistics.
think the key question is, does the board have an issue with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders forming a league? And I think Mr. Green's point about whether or not this is a separate team or is this going to be a 6 to 12 team, yeah. Are we gonna have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders practicing by themselves with the sponsors, or not by, or and then the high schools practicing alone, or will they all be together practicing?
I believe it would all be together at this current time with the way the coaches feel.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Mr. Green?
Yeah.
Does that give you more concerns on this?
No, I think it's better to have them with the older. You have, when it
Okay.
comes to gun safety, maturity obviously is a big factor, and having just 6th, 7th, and 8th graders
And
would be more of a concern to me than having them with high schoolers who have been around it longer.
See
And
that.
that's where I'll say too, multiple gentlemen are not in our building every day and are helping with this program and coaching this program. It's very nice to have Mr. Tripp there because he's in our building every day. He can check on students every day. He has conversations with his team every day. It would be ideal if the middle school had someone to do something that he's doing. That way someone's in the building,
Right.
especially
And right
with
now,
the safety of the
Mr.
firearms.
Keener's the one that said that he would be willing to do that.
Yes.
He is currently the one that I was told, but like I said, I have not personally had a conversation with him about that except for.
I know he hunts ducks.
Absolutely.
I don't know, is there anybody else in the middle school that would hunt ducks, or?
Well, I mean, there
Is that not how you say it?
I'm sure that's
Water
what you're saying.
chickens. Water chickens.
Ducks.
I think he's,
Hunts ducks.
Hunt the ducks. Them.
I'm just saying is that.
Them
I'm just
there.
like-
Too narrowed down. We just need to approve if it's all
I'm
right
also
at the middle
looking,
school. We're gonna be here all
I
night.
also look past this current year. We have some retirements coming up and that stuff, and I would be
Okay.
concerned about, is there somebody that would be there more than 1 year that would do that, with some of those things?
Do other middle schools have?
In this league, yeah, they do have in this league, there are 6 through 12 in various ones. As you get to the middle of the state and upwards where we have our state tournament, yeah, there are a lot of students that are bringing up in that. I mean, you can actually go into the Sparta, CIS and Amateur Trap Shooting Association and that stuff. Students are in the 12, 13-year range, which would be that 8th grade freshman.
if we pass this, we can ask them to come in January and do a presentation on a lot of the details, but.
And I will say just this, not even the competition, but the safety systems alone that they go through to certify each kid is a life lesson if you're gonna be around firearms.
Okay. Other questions? Then I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendation for expanding the track team down to the middle school.
So move.
In a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We now have a need to go into closed session.
Make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to section 2 of the Open Meetings Act 5, Illinois Compliance Statutes 120/2C to review the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee to determine its validity.
Second? Second. Mrs. Hines?
Mr. Beavers?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Dr. Dorr?
Yes.
Mrs. James?
Yes.
Mrs. Evaldi?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rungy?
Yes, motion carries.